My parents paid for my brother's dream wedding, then told me they couldn't afford mine. I had spent my entire life playing second fiddle to my brother Jason. Ever since we were kids, my parents had made it abundantly clear that he was the one who mattered more. He was the golden boy, the pride of the family, the son who could do no wrong. Every milestone of his was celebrated as if he had single-handedly saved the world. Straight A's in school, a brand new gaming console, a successful Little League season, a grand family vacation to Disneyland, his graduation, a luxury watch, a car, and a party so extravagant it could have been mistaken for a celebrity gala. I, on the other hand, was expected to be understanding. If I brought home good grades, a nod of approval sufficed. If I achieved something noteworthy, it was quickly overshadowed by whatever Jason happened to be doing at that moment. I learned to smile through it, to swallow the disappointment, to accept the role of the less important child. I convinced myself that love wasn't measured in material things, that maybe my parents showed their affection in subtler ways. But all of that rationalization shattered the moment Jason got engaged. The moment he announced his wedding, my parents sprang into action like soldiers preparing for war. They were involved in every single detail, their excitement bubbling over into endless discussions about venues, caterers, floral arrangements, and designer outfits. No expense was too great, no request too extravagant. They booked a luxury estate for the venue, complete with a breathtaking ocean view. Jason's tuxedo was custom-made from an elite fashion house, and his fiancée, Lily, was adorned in a gown so intricate and expensive it could have been a royal heirloom. The guest list was extensive, filled with distant relatives and important family friends, the kind of people my parents wanted to impress. The wedding cake alone cost more than what I had saved for my first car. And then there was the honeymoon, a month-long getaway to Santorini in Paris, entirely bankrolled by my parents. They gushed about it, talked about how they wanted Jason and Lily to have the perfect start to their marriage, how it was their duty as parents to give their son the absolute best. I watched it all unfold with a tight smile, biting back the bitterness that threatened to rise within me. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, when my time came, they would do the same for me. I was so wrong. A few months after Jason's wedding, I got engaged. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. My fiancé, Ethan, had proposed under the stars, in the same park where we had shared our first kiss years ago. There were no grand gestures, no over-the-top theatrics, just the two of us, lost in the moment, promising forever. When I shared the news with my parents, their reaction was underwhelming. Jason's engagement had been met with screams of joy, immediate discussions of wedding plans, and a celebratory dinner at an expensive restaurant. Mine? A half-hearted, "Oh, that's nice, dear," followed by a quick shift in conversation to something else. I should have seen it coming. Still, I clung to hope. I sat them down a week later, armed with ideas and excitement, ready to discuss venues and dates. I had already envisioned a charming outdoor wedding, nothing as opulent as Jason's, just something beautiful and meaningful. But before I could even get through my ideas, my mother held up a hand and sighed. "Sweetheart, we just can't afford another wedding right now." Her words knocked the air out of my lungs. I blinked, waiting for some kind of clarification, some sign that she was joking. "What do you mean?" My father chimed in with a forced, sympathetic look. "Jason's wedding took a lot out of us financially. You know how much we spent. We just don't have the means to fund another one so soon." I stared at them, struggling to process what I was hearing. "So, you're saying you have nothing to contribute?" My mother's lips pressed together in an apologetic smile, the kind you give a child when telling them their favorite toy is lost forever. "We wish we could help, but you'll have to handle this one on your own." The weight of their words crushed me. They had emptied their wallets for Jason, given him everything. And now, when it was my turn, when I needed them, they suddenly had nothing left. I could feel the sting of betrayal seeping into my bones, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I forced a smile, nodded, and stood up. "All right," I said, voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "I understand." And I did. I understood perfectly. I had always been the afterthought, but not this time. This time, I would take control. If my parents thought their lack of financial support would break me, they were wrong. I refused to let their favoritism taint one of the most important days of my life. Ethan and I sat down and went through our savings, reworking our budget to fit within our means. We found a beautiful garden venue that, while not as extravagant as Jason's oceanfront estate, had a charm that felt more us. Instead of a luxury designer dress, I found a stunning gown at a boutique sale that fit like a dream. Ethan's suit wasn't custom-tailored from a world-famous designer, but he looked just as handsome in it. We found creative ways to save money without sacrificing what mattered. Our friends and family pitched in. My best friend offered to bake our wedding cake. A college friend who was an amateur photographer gifted us her services as a wedding present, and Ethan's aunt, a talented florist, volunteered to handle the floral arrangements. Every detail of our wedding was built with love, not money, and it was perfect. As the day drew closer, my parents remained strangely quiet about it. There were no excited phone calls, no offers to help in any way. It was as if my wedding didn't exist in their world. But then, just a few weeks before the big day, the inevitable happened. They asked about their invitation. I was sitting in my apartment when my phone rang. My mother's voice was dripping with forced cheerfulness. "So, sweetheart, we were wondering, when are you sending out the invitations? Your father and I need to know what time to arrive." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. They had made no effort, given me no support, acted like my wedding didn't matter, and now, suddenly, they wanted front row seats? I had a choice to make: forgive and forget, or finally stand up for myself. I exhaled, gripping my phone a little tighter. "Mom," I said, my voice calm, steady. "About that." She hummed expectantly, waiting, and I smiled, because this time I held the power. The silence on the other end of the phone was almost deafening. My mother, who had spent the better part of my life dismissing my needs, suddenly found herself waiting, anticipating my response like a student waiting for a professor's final grade. And I enjoyed making her wait. She expected me to be polite, to brush aside years of favoritism with a laugh, to tell her the invitations were on the way, to pretend I hadn't noticed the glaring imbalance between how she and my father had treated my brother and me. But I had noticed. I had always noticed. "Mom," I said again, letting the word settle. "I don't think that's a conversation we need to have." A pause. A sharp inhale. Then, that familiar, sugary sweet voice she always used when trying to manipulate a situation in her favor. "Sweetheart, don't be ridiculous. Of course, we need to talk about it. Your father and I wouldn't miss your big day for anything. Except financial support, effort, or basic enthusiasm," I thought, bitterly. I leaned back on my couch, staring at the ceiling. "You already missed most of it, Mom," I said, my voice even. "The planning, the excitement, the process. You weren't there for any of it." She laughed, a light, dismissive sound. "Oh, darling, that's not fair. We wanted to help, but we just couldn't afford to after Jason's wedding. It's not like we didn't care." "Really? Because it felt like you didn't," I said, allowing the years of pent-up frustration to slip into my words. "It felt like I didn't matter." Her tone sharpened. "Now, hold on. That's not true at all." "Isn't it?" I countered. "You had every resource available for Jason. You went above and beyond. But when it was my turn, you suddenly had nothing left. You didn't even ask if there was a small way you could contribute. You just assumed I'd figure it out alone, and you moved on with your lives." I heard rustling on her end, as if she were pacing the room. "I don't understand why you're bringing all this up now," she huffed. "We're talking about invitations, not—" "We're talking about choices," I interrupted. "Your choices. And now you want me to act like they don't matter?" She scoffed. "Are you seriously telling me you'd exclude your own parents from your wedding just because we couldn't contribute financially?" I smiled, a bitter, knowing smile she couldn't see. "Oh, so now my wedding matters to you?" A long, drawn-out pause. "That's not fair," she whispered. I could practically hear the realization setting in. For years, my parents had told themselves a story, a carefully crafted narrative in which Jason deserved more. He was the firstborn, the shining star, the one who needed constant elevation. And me? I was understanding. I was mature. I didn't need as much. But now, faced with the undeniable truth, my mother was scrambling for control. She was so used to brushing my feelings aside, so used to me swallowing my pain with a polite smile, that she didn't know how to handle a version of me who refused to play along. "You're making this into a much bigger issue than it is," she tried again. I exhaled. It is a big issue, Mom. And I think the reason it bothers you so much is because you know I'm right. You know that deep down you've always put Jason first. She gasped, as if I had said something vile. That's ridiculous. We love you both equally. I let out a humorless laugh. Then prove it. Silence. Prove it, I repeated, my voice firm. Tell me one time, just one, where you made the same effort for me as you did for Jason. More silence. The kind that stretched too long. The kind that confirmed everything I already knew. I don't like where this conversation is going, she murmured, voice suddenly small, because there was nowhere for her to go. No defense, no plausible excuse. She couldn't change the past. She could only sit in the wreckage of it. For years my parents had held all the power. They were the ones who decided what mattered and what didn't, who received their attention and who didn't. But now I was the one making the decision, and they didn't like it. I heard the muffled sound of my father's voice in the background. Then, a rustling noise before he took the phone. Listen, he said, his voice gruff but tired. We get it. You're upset. But you're our daughter, and we deserve to be there for your wedding. I closed my eyes, letting that word settle in my mind. Deserve. They thought they deserved a front row seat to a moment they had done nothing to build. They thought they were entitled to my forgiveness, without ever earning it. And I had spent too many years letting them dictate my worth. I inhaled slowly, exhaled even slower. Then, with a calmness that surprised even me, I said, No, Dad, you don't deserve it. Silence. Pure, unfiltered shock. Then, my father's voice, laced with anger. Excuse me? I leaned forward, pressing my elbows onto my knees. You don't deserve it, I repeated, my voice steady. You want to be there for the final moment, the part where you get to smile for pictures and tell people how proud you are, but you weren't there for any of the moments that led up to it. You weren't there when I was struggling to plan. You weren't there when I needed support. You weren't there at all. That's not... You chose not to be, I cut in. And now I'm making my own choice. A thick, suffocating silence stretched between us. Are you seriously telling me you're not inviting your own parents to your wedding? My father finally demanded. I exhaled, feeling something deep within me settle. No, Dad, I said. I'm telling you that you made that choice for yourselves. The silence that followed was different this time. He knew. He knew I wasn't backing down. I was the one setting the terms. And there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. By the time I hung up, I felt lighter. Years of resentment, of playing second best, of watching my brother receive every ounce of attention while I was expected to settle for scraps. Suddenly, none of it had power over me anymore. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need their money. I didn't need their empty apologies or their forced smiles. I had built my dream wedding without them, and that meant I could live without them too. A week later, the invitations went out. My parents never received one, and I didn't feel guilty about it. The week before my wedding, I stood in the middle of the venue, staring at the empty chairs, the floral arrangements still being finalized, the soft golden light filtering in through the cathedral windows. It was quiet, peaceful even, but my mind was anything but. Despite my newfound strength, despite the boundaries I had set with my parents, a nagging voice in the back of my mind still whispered, "Did I do the right thing?" It was a voice born from years of conditioning, from a childhood of being told to keep the peace, to be grateful for whatever crumbs of attention I was given, to never make things bigger than they had to be. But standing in this space, surrounded by something I had built on my own, I realized something. The only thing bigger than my choice was their choice. They had chosen to treat me as an afterthought. They had chosen to invest everything in Jason while leaving me to fend for myself. They had chosen to prioritize their own version of events over reality. So why was I questioning my choice when all I had done was follow the example they had set? I exhaled, rolling my shoulders back. No more questioning, no more guilt. This was my day, my moment, my story, and I wasn't about to let ghosts haunt it. The next morning, as I was sipping coffee in my hotel suite, my phone rang. Part of me already knew who it was before I even glanced at the screen. Mom. I let it ring twice, my thumb hovering over the reject button, before curiosity got the better of me. I took a deep breath and answered, Hello? A shaky exhale on the other end. Sweetheart, she began, her voice softer than I had heard in years. Please don't hang up. I didn't, but I didn't say anything either. I let her sit in the silence, let her feel the weight of everything left unsaid. When she realized I wasn't going to make this easy, she continued. I know we didn't handle things the right way. I know you're upset. But you're our daughter, and tomorrow is your wedding. I closed my eyes. And we just want to be there, she said, her voice cracking. We don't want to miss this. A year ago, maybe even a few months ago, those words might have shattered my resolve, might have pulled me back into the cycle of guilt and obligation. But now they only made me feel nothing. Mom, I said evenly, I told you my decision, and I meant it. But we're family, she cried, the desperation leaking through now. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I let out a humorless chuckle. It used to, I admitted, before I realized that family only seemed to matter when you needed something from me. She gasped as if I had just slapped her. You only care now because you don't want to look like the parents who got left out of their child's wedding, I continued, my voice cold but unwavering. You didn't care when I needed your support. You didn't care when I was struggling. You didn't care when I told you how much your favoritism hurt me. But now that the consequences are inconvenient for you, I let out a slow exhale. Now you want to talk? There was silence, a long, heavy kind of silence. Then a sniffle, a quiet, broken whisper. Please. I closed my eyes, willing myself to feel something, some kind of sympathy, some kind of regret, some kind of urge to fix things. But there was nothing, just the quiet knowledge that I had already mourned this relationship a long time ago. I opened my eyes, looked out the window at the city skyline, and spoke the final words I would ever say to her. I hope one day you understand, I murmured, but I won't be the one waiting for that day to come. Then, without another word, I ended the call. The ceremony was perfect. The vows were exchanged in front of people who had earned the right to be there. The music was soft, the air buzzing with warmth and love. When I walked down the aisle, I wasn't thinking about who wasn't there. I was thinking about me. For once, this was a moment I didn't have to share with ghosts. When we exchanged rings, I glanced at my best friend, who had been by my side through every moment of this journey. I looked at my partner, who had supported me when my own family wouldn't. I looked at the guests, friends, chosen family, people who had shown up for me in ways my parents never had. And I smiled, because this was my life, and I had built it on my own terms. I didn't hear from my parents after that. Not directly, at least. Jason tried, of course. A few months after the wedding, I got a text. Jason, Mom and Dad are devastated. They say you won't even return their calls. Don't you think you're being a little dramatic? I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but exhaustion. For years, Jason had been at the center of everything. He had always been the golden child, the one who received their love and attention effortlessly. And now, even after everything, he still expected me to fall back in line. I typed out a response. Me. Funny. They never seemed devastated when they were ignoring me my entire life. I hit send and blocked his number. That was the last time I heard from any of them. And honestly, it was the happiest I had ever been. Years passed. Life moved forward. My wedding was just the beginning. After that, I built a life that was truly mine. A life without walking on eggshells. A life without begging for approval. A life where I was chosen by people who genuinely loved me, not just obligated to love me. And my parents? They became a distant memory. Occasionally, I'd hear through mutual acquaintances that they still told their version of the story, that they played the victims, that they claimed they had no idea why their daughter had cut them off. But their words didn't matter. Only actions mattered. And their actions had spoken loud and clear. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their apologies. I didn't need them. Because in the end, I had given myself something far greater than anything they ever could. A life on my terms. And that was the best revenge of all.